Adetoro and Rashad come from two different backgrounds. After a heated argument, they both find themselves in a situation that forces them to look to the other for safety. Privilege is a new short film by Omo Pastor that directs and sheds lights on the privilege of black men from different sides of the world. Be sure to check it out now on Flower. This week on The Wise Guys.
Your social awareness and your self-awareness, but it also, reinforces minds as well to make sure that in itself is known,
and I also wanted to just highlight
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? Just because we are black people living in the communities we do, and, there is a lot of the times the reason for it seeming so impoverished is because of, the people who actually own it and are in control, not upkeeping it properly, and then us just not having the power within it to do much. But there's a lot, man, there's a lot of promise and good business and great ideas. Like poverty, I know, refers mostly to like economic, having a lack of economic resources and all that. But poverty just means having a lack thereof, period. And what we don't lack is hustle. You know what I mean? What we don't lack is creativity. You know what I mean? What we don't lack is...
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Kevin Anglade, and you are now tuning in to the Wise Guys podcast, brought to you by Flowered Concrete. Check it out.
Yo, what's going on? We're back once again. We're back. This is your boy, Kevin Anglade.
And this is Mark Pruden.
And we are the Wise Guys podcast. Mark, what's going on, bro? How you been?
Everything's been great, man. It's just getting ready for the holiday season, so can't complain. It's a beautiful thing.
Excellent, man. Ladies and gents, y'all been rocking with us for a good minute now. All right, y'all really been rocking with us. This is. I'm not gonna say this is it, but we're almost at the finish line. We have about 3 episodes left. This is episode 22. Alright, this is episode 22. I'll preview and give the title in a moment, but this is episode 22. Mark, how do you feel so far, man? We've come a long way each week, either sparring and going at it, by ourselves and kinda offending or upsetting the other, and kinda making it get real heated, with these debates and these discussions, and also, going back and forth with our guests. How do you feel about the first season so far?
It's been great, man. A lot of insight from different perspectives, and just going back and forth and getting the conversation going. So it's been a learning experience, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Opening up my mind a little bit. Yeah.
For sure. Likewise. Same for me, man. Same for me. I'm not gonna lie. It's really nice. Always talking to someone who you really care about and you appreciate, such as yourself. And that's always fun. But I think I really found myself, I don't know if you also feel this way, but I feel as if I really found myself in a different groove once we started getting guests in here, man. I feel as if it added another dynamic to the show. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree with that, man, for sure. It's been such a diverse group of people from different, all walks of life, different ethnicities. It's just been really interesting, man. Just getting to learn about so many different people.
For sure. No, I agree. You sound a little bit over there on your side, Mark. Just be sure to talk into the mic. If that's cool.
I got you.
For sure. Yeah, man. No, I totally agree. Ladies and gents, today's episode 22, is called "Is It Because I'm Black?" Again, the title is called "Is It Because I'm Black?" We have a really special show planned for you today. And we have a guest who I will introduce momentarily. But unfortunately, Mark, you'll only be in here for like the next 10-15 minutes. You have to go. I know you got a lot of things to do. So all the listeners out there who hate Mark and also love Mark at the same time, you're only going to get him for about 15 minutes today. But we'll make do with what we have. Cool. So we have a really special guest coming on the show for today's podcast. Yes, Mark?
Absolutely.
Now, ladies and gents, earlier on the show, about 12, 13 episodes ago, we had on my boy Raheem on the show. Raheem, aka Cash Sinatra. He was a rapper. Once again today, we have another artist on the show, another rapper on the show, alright? Ladies and gents, I said this before and I'm gonna say it again. We don't do rappers on the show, okay? We do not do rappers. But this guy that we have coming on the show today, he is more than a rapper and a musician, Mark. This man is also a philosopher. He's a thinker, and more importantly, he's an educator, man. He's educated. He's a teacher, and he's gone to school and got a couple of degrees in the process.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're really, really happy to be bringing on this guy into the show. So without further ado, let's introduce and bring in our guest for today. All right, my boy Dre Coleman. Dre, what's up, bro?
Yo, Kev, you know the vibes. What's up, man? What's going on, brother? How I sound?
You sound good, man. You sound good. You ready to get on the show today and debate a couple of topics with us?
Yes, sir. I'm absolutely ready, man.
Excellent. Dre, before we get right into it, can you please give a quick 30-second elevated pitch synopsis about who you are, what you do, and all that jazz, professionally and personally?
Absolutely. And thanks for the opportunity to do this. My name is Dre Coleman. Short, Dre for short. His name is Hoffa Bills, and follow me on Instagram. I have a EP
Talk to the mic, bro.
That eloquent intro. And the bachelor's in Brooklyn, my bachelor's in English, my master's in education, specifically students with disabilities, adolescents with mild severe disabilities, stuff like that. And I've been teaching, 5th year of teaching. I did high school for 4 years. I just transitioned middle school at the start of the school year. And, I'm just looking to keep people. It's just what I do.
Excellent. Again, man, we're really grateful and happy to have you on the show. And again, Dre, I'm just going to ask to talk to the mic and also make sure you're in a good spot so that way we can get you and hear you. But yeah, man, look, we're happy to have you. We got 3 segments to attack right now. Y'all gentlemen ready? Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Excellent. So the first segment, Mark, we did it with the young ladies, with Anais and Teresa a while back. We did women in the workplace, black women in the workplace. Today we're going to start off with black men in the workplace. All right, so black men in the workplace. So gentlemen, my question to you, I'll let Dre go first, and then Mark, you can respond afterwards. So the question, Dre, I wanted to pose to you is, how do we as men, or maybe that's not the right way to say it, but
think about your question.
Yeah, I really want to think about my question. So, okay, I'm going to rephrase it. So the question for us is, how do black men navigate the workplace when the workplace itself is a place where the dominating ethnicity is not of black? So when I say that again, so how do black men navigate the workplace when they are more so in a white cultural space? How does that happen? What do you think?
Great question. For me, obviously, with the accolades and the little bit of success that I've had in my life, part of that has had to come through knowing how to navigate in those kind of spaces. And I kind of, besides being just strictly taught, look, black man, you have to know how to pull your mask down and then when to lift it off. It's definitely a very discreet skill and code switching and all of that. So the same way, I'm from the hood. I'm from, wherever I'm from. I'm not from well-to-do background, not even rich and none of that. And when just being around certain people of color, it creates a certain level of misunderstanding or just different expectations or different understandings. And so as black men, we really have to, at least in my experience, what helped was being prepared that knowing people wasn't going to necessarily understand where you was coming from and why certain things are important to you. And the same way, as black people in general, there's this rhetoric going on now about people needing to understand us. We also have to enter that space with a certain level of understanding that they understand us already.
For sure. No, that's pretty good. I also want to throw this in there too. Do you bring your whole self to work as a black man? So again, you mentioned it earlier, right? You go by Hoffa Bills, as an artist, Ladies and gents, we'll also, make sure that he plugs in all his socials at the end of the show. So if you want to check out how real my man's is, we'll let you know about it. but you're also an artist, you're a rapper, you're a writer, you do a lot of things outside of being an educator. But so my question is, do you see yourself as a black man bringing in your whole self to work? So when I say your whole self, I mean you being an artist, you being, from the neighborhood that you're from and repping that proudly. Do you bring your whole self, or do you slice it in half and only give the corporate side?
I'm gonna have to be real, bro. I don't have no corporate side. You know what I mean? I don't have no corporate side. Yeah, I do bring my whole self. Now, like I said, a part of myself is that ability to code switch. I think as black men especially, there's a lot of pressure to be a real one all the time, right? And it's just like, bro, you better switch it up when it's time to switch it up. And that's as much a part of me as all of the stuff I say in my music. And now I don't go up to work first thing in the morning and tell my boss to go listen to my new mixtape. No, but the people I work with know that I do music and know what I do outside of work. Yeah, you know what I mean. Does everybody that I work with professionally need to know everything about my personal life or my other side? No, but for the most part, yeah, I don't have no corporate side, bro. That's part of the reason why there's not many careers for me outside of education, because I can be myself and reach the kids I want to work with, because I don't work at no white school, I don't work at whatever. I work with mostly black kids, and yes, the leadership for the school network that I work with is of course run by white people. And since I've joined this network, I've heard a lot of dialogue, about power hoarding and different ways that it's affected, the black cohort of employees. But nah, bro, I'm myself, and when I go places, I bring myself because I think that's what people want in terms of where they're trying to take their business.
I respect that. That's cool. Mark, same question. Black men in the workplace, can they actually bring their whole selves, or do they usually end up slicing a part of themselves in half?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what sector you're in. You know what I mean? Because there's some like in education, like this brother said, he's teaching his own people. He's in his own community, so he can be himself, and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm sure that's great for our mental health and just spiritually as well. But I feel like when you begin to navigate, the other races, school system, and other sectors of business, there's going to be that code switching. There's going to be you sort of mirroring the people around you to make them feel comfortable enough to conduct business with you.
Yeah.
Because Jay-Z, different rappers, they have a corporate side. They have, when they're in a business meeting, they're not really talking about certain things that happen in their life or what they used to do and stuff like that. They're keeping it strictly business. So I guess in that sense, everybody really has to do it, when you're trying to navigate these different spaces. Because, if we bring things from our personal life into it, they're not going to know what we're talking about. When we use these different terms and, different slang that we use in our communities, if we use that to other races and stuff like that, they really wouldn't know what we're talking about. It would be a circus, or it would be almost like it'll be like making a mockery of ourselves.
Right.
And in my opinion. So it's definitely, I feel like I have to do that. I have to mirror. I don't want to say emulate, but in sales, it's strategy. It's just thinking strategically and knowing what you have to do. Is it manipulation? Possibly, but it's just a part of the game.
Absolutely.
We all have to do what we have to do. So, yeah, I definitely agree.
For sure. I think this is going to be a rhetorical question for Dre. But as everyone out there in the WISE community knows, I'm also an educator too. This is my first year in the high school realm, but prior, I taught 2 years middle school English language arts through Teach for America, in a predominantly African American and Latino community in Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm not gonna lie, I think Dre has something there when he says, you bring your whole self to work, so you got to know when to switch it up. So I know for me, I can totally code switch and, conduct myself and speak, SAE, right, which stands for Standard American English, and, have that, and use that type of vernacular when conversing with my coworkers and whatnot. But then at the same time, I ain't gonna lie to y'all both. I do sometimes kind of feel away. Not feel away. What am I saying? Not feel away, but I do kind of notice myself, or like it's kind of like that double consciousness, right? That W.E.B. Du Bois, his whole concept on double consciousness, where like, I'm talking to my coworkers one way, and then when my students come up to me, they're like, "Yo, what's good, mister?" And I start talking to them a certain type of way, and I'm like, "What's good?" Like, "Yo, how's your classes going?" or this and that, and then I'm like, "Yo, get out of here! You be lying, you be fronting." And then when I see like a white teacher or someone around, I'm just like, "Dang!" I'm like, they're really hearing me talk with these kids, like how how we speak, African American vernacular English, or slang as they call it. So I'm just like, I hope they don't see me as a certain way, or they're not biased towards me because of it, or because of that they think I have a leverage up with these kids, or whatnot. But then part of me is like, nah, bro, like even though you're not from Hartford, you can go to Philly, you can go to Chicago, you can go to Miami, and you would still be speaking the same way with these kids. Like, that's a part of you. You're from Southside Jamaica, Queens. That's where you come from. So you can't feel no type of ways about it. But the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted to know, Dre, like, do you consciously think, like, I know you don't, but if there are administration around, or your fellow white peers are around, do you think about it like, dang, man, they're hearing my improper speech, my improper grammar, all that?
Man, absolutely not. Let me tell you, I told you, I just started in a new network this year of schools, and I actually got hired pretty late. So I got hired like a week before the school year started, and I got onboarded pretty fast. So my first day at the job, the principal is a white Jewish woman, and now don't get me wrong, a lot of my coworkers are black people, but then the leadership, is white, and there is a significant white presence to the point where if you felt any kind of way about being your whole self as a black person, you would probably want to conceal it. But my first day in the job, bro, and the principal introduced me and asked me to say a few words, man, my speech went something like this: "Yo, it's nice to meet all of y'all. Know what I mean? It's gonna be a whole vibe. I'm looking forward to getting this work done. I know the kids that y'all work with. I know the challenges we face, and I'm just here ready to get down to business. So let's do it." And that was my introduction to the people I work with. And the entire staff was there, principal down to the paraprofessionals. So for me, it's also kind of a gift though, because my general disposition, I'm not the most off-putting person. I'm not very abrasive. I do think I'm well-spoken. I do think I'm approachable. So in general, like, my disposition is pretty welcoming, even if I don't try to act white or make myself palatable for a white audience. I'm not necessarily coming off as that offensive black person or that needs to be censored black person anyway, which also then does create a certain dissonance within myself. Like, yo, am I not real enough? You know what I'm saying? But generally, just being myself, those are not really issues I have. Right. Excellent. Mark, you want to comment on that? You have any thoughts on that before we move on to our next segment?
I can totally respect that, just, being yourself 100% of the time, because that's not something many people can do. Whether they feel like there's repercussions or they just don't have the confidence to do it. But, that being said, some would say, they could possibly be judging you, but at that point, I don't think you really care what their opinions are. You're just trying to get the work done and complete your mission. So I can totally respect that. If I wouldn't have done it, I would say that would be a mistake, but we all have our differences in the way we approach things, for sure. The thing is, why I don't think it would have been a mistake, and why, if had the situation been different, I might have felt a little more pressure to be more conscious of what I said and how I introduced myself. But seeing the way I was even welcomed there, and catching on to the vibe that was already in that space, I just kind of felt that I could be myself more. One of the things that this network is big on is relationships, and not just systematic protocol. And so in order to build relationships, ultimately you have to be yourself, because if you fake it, then you're doing yourself a disservice trying to help this other person. And not everybody, I'm not going to be able to be every kid's favorite teacher or every kid's mentor or even connect with every kid.
That's a fact.
But for those who my personality will benefit, then that's who I'm here for. I'm not trying to save the fucking world. Excuse me, I don't know if I'm too crazy.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You good. You good.
All good.
Excellent. Wow. Honestly, I know, Mark, you have to go in a couple of minutes. This actually segues into our second segment of the show today, and I'm actually gonna, Dre, you can respond after Mark is done responding, because I kind of want to get Mark to respond to get him out of here. Dang, man, I really wish Mark could have stuck around the whole show today, but he gotta hustle. Cool. So you brought up the word, Dre. Or the term, you brought up the term systematic protocol. I really like that. And it's so funny how it actually segues into our next segment. Our next segment is called Bias. Bias and Racial Discrimination in Society for Black Men. Again, Bias and Racial Discrimination in Society for Black Men. So I came across this story this morning, actually. I had the segment for a while, but I came across a story about a lieutenant. Maybe you guys have heard about this story. Lieutenant Edwin Raymond. Again, Lieutenant Edwin Raymond. He's a Haitian American lieutenant officer for the NYPD, and he is suing. He is suing the police department for discrimination in the New York City subways. So get this: multiple police officers in Brooklyn are saying that they were told by a commander that white and Asian people should be left alone, and any other men, black and Latino, are targets and should be targeted for stop and frisk. Mark, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's terrible.
To say the least.
Yeah, that's horrible, man. I mean, it's not something we didn't know was going on, but the fact that it's highlighted, it's amazing, man. It truly is. I mean, I really don't have any words for that. That's insane. But that's what we've been experiencing for years. So
absolutely,
it's not really a surprise, but it's just amazing that there's actual proof.
Right. So I'm going to read this extra quote here from Officer Grable. So this is all in the New York Times, in this New York Times article. Officer Grable, who is black, asked, would you have been more comfortable if these guys were black or Hispanic? Now, the reason why he asked that question was because he went into an Asian community where they usually ride the subways, and he started targeting them. And the inspector name, I think his name is Inspector Sakis, he said yes in response to what he asked. So he was degrading is not a good word. He was belittling or riding Officer Grable, Inspector Sakis, because of the fact that he was targeting the Asians, and he was like, no, leave them alone. That's not what we're after. He was like, so he basically said, yes, I would be more appreciative and comfortable if you were, going after guys who were black or Hispanic. Dre, you'd like to chime in your thoughts on that?
Man, it's just like Mark said, it's few words for that, because we know that type of stuff is going on. But as opposed to being upset about it, man, I'm happy that those brothers, because I have a lot of dissonance towards police officers, especially black officers now with civil rights and all of that stuff. I understand the importance of us having our own people in law enforcement, for the same reason why we need our own selves in education. But I'm happy that homie felt the confidence and the security to go ahead and speak out, because it does take a lot of courage to speak out on issues like that is wrong, and to bring light to it, knowing what repercussions could come from it. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't think I would, or I don't think anybody should feel better being told, to target anybody, unless we're at war and you have enemies, which is that's what this is? Is this a war against us? Are we at war against the people that are supposed to just look out for our general safety? Why are we all assumed to be criminals or to be dangerous? You know what I mean? So that's also another reason, why I say within myself, why a part of me being my whole self is knowing how to be at certain times and when and where, because it's just, you got targets on your back and people looking at you hey, watch him, he just might, so
yeah,
it is what it is. I've kind of just learned to deal with that and just learn to protect myself, and I just wish that everybody had their own mechanisms.
Mark, any last words in terms of responding back to Dre sounding off? And then once you're done, you could pretty much, excuse yourself because I know you gotta go.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a tough thing where I believe they mentioned Brooklyn specifically, right?
Yeah, Brooklyn specifically.
At a time where, the area is being gentrified, they're attempting to push the minorities out. It's ironic that they are targeting them when it comes to petty and low-level offenses. I mean, there's many ways to push people out of a neighborhood, whether it's, raising the rents, increasing, harassment when it comes to police interaction. There's many ways to push someone out gently,
Right.
So who's to say that could be one of the tactics to clean up the neighborhood and keep the gentrification of that borough happening at a faster rate. So it makes perfect sense.
No, I agree.
It definitely does.
For sure. Mark, I'm gonna allow you some breathing room to excuse yourself, man, before you get at me for keeping you on too long.
Gotcha. Absolutely. It's definitely great talking to you, brothers. I look forward to speaking to you guys again.
For sure.
Of course, you guys. Absolutely great.
All right. I appreciate it, man. I wish we had more time.
Absolutely. We'll do it another time for sure.
For sure.
All
right.
For sure.
Enjoy, guys.
All right, Mark. Thank you, man. Yeah, Dre. So ladies and gents, unfortunately, if you were tuned in since the beginning of the podcast, Mark had to go. Unfortunately, something came up business-wise, so he had to go in and get that done. But definitely, if we're lucky enough to have Dre, in his spare time once again down the line, hopefully we can attack another topic, so that'll be great. But yeah, so Dre, I still have you for the rest of the show, so definitely I want to build upon this with you if that's okay.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
For sure. Cool. So yeah, man. So it's interesting, right? And I wanted to harp on a point that you brought up or that you made. I remember when we were going to Brooklyn College, there was a particular time. I remember I left class real late. Well, not class real late, but I left the school real late. I kind of got, caught up and, lost track of time because I was studying and whatnot. I was in the library. And I probably was heading home like around 11:30. Now, mind you, I'm tired, whatnot. And at the time, I was living in Queens. I was staying by my mom's crib. And so what's crazy is that, I was like, yo, I'm about to miss this train. I gotta make it. So I'm running to hop on the 2 train, and I got on it. But like how when you enter one part of the subway, like you enter the first the first car, but you really don't want to stay in the first car. You want to keep pushing through and go all the way down as much as possible to like other cars, so that way when you get off a certain stop, that's going to lead towards like the elevator or somewhere you can go up and catch another train.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, right? I was probably going through like 5-6 cars. And then I noticed after I got to one car, there was a cop there, and I was like, oh crap. I was like, damn, I hope he didn't notice that I just went through that door. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna play it cool and just act as if nothing's happened, because if I act guilty, then obviously I'm gonna look guilty. So I remember I was sitting down, and he was standing up at the door. And then I think when the train stopped, the following stop, I don't remember where it was. It could have been Nostrand, or it could have been Eastern Parkway. One of those stops, man. I really don't remember, but I remember he stopped. I remember when the train stopped. He looked at me, and then he kind of like wagged his finger, for me to. He just basically beckoned me over towards him, and he's like, "Could you step off the train with me for a second?" I was like, "Oh crap!" I was like, "Boy," he gonna give me a summons. So I got off the train with him. He sat me down. And then he was like, "Do you know why I stopped you?" And I was like, "No, sir, I have no clue." And then he said, "I stopped you because you ran." He's like, "You went through the car." And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, officer." He's like, "You didn't know you can do that?" I was like, "Honestly, I did, but I really wasn't thinking. I'm just tired and I want to get home, and I apologize for it." He's okay. So why don't you just sit down on this bench, for a second, And I was like, "All right, cool." So he sat me down on the bench. I sat down there. And he didn't do anything. Like he literally sat me down on the bench. He didn't say anything to me, and he just looked at me. And then he started looking around, and I'm like, wait, I've been here for like 2-3 minutes now. Why isn't he doing anything? So I said, all right, cool. And I was like, "Officer, is it okay if I take out my book?" He's like, "Yeah, sure thing. So then I took out my book and I started reading it. I was like, I don't know what game this man is playing, but I'm not gonna play into any game he got going on. So I'm reading my book, and then about 9-10 minutes passes by, and inside of my heart, Dre, I'm livid. I'm furious. I'm like, yo, he's wasting my time. What is he expecting? What is he trying to get out of me? But I'm like, you know what, Kev? This is the dynamic that that you put yourself in, and this is the framework of what it is right now. So you just kind of gotta like relax. And then I think another minute passed. So overall, Dre, it's been 12 minutes. And then he's like, hey, like, you seem like a pretty cool kid, whatever, whatnot. I'm gonna let you off with a warning. And then he's like, here's a summons, for going through the car. I advise you not to do that next time. He's like, if you wanna, defend yourself and you wanna argue against it, here's the courts. You can call them up or you can visit them and try to get an appeal, whatever, whatnot. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he was like, well, that's it, pretty much. He's like, have a great night. And then he went about his way and he left, like he literally exited the turnstile. And I was like, did I just fulfill one of his quotas? Is that what this was? But I could not believe it, man. Like, I don't know. Could you, like, I know you weren't there, but what's your thoughts on that? Could you break down that situation for me, or what do you think about it? What's your honest thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think, I honestly, when you said the part about he stopped and looked around, for me, I forgot that you was telling a story that, like, I forgot you was the person in the story, and I'm like, oh shit, is this nigga about to get killed? Like, yeah. Like, oh shit, you alone in the train station with this cop at night, nobody around, and he's looking around. I'm like, is he about to just, violate you? That's what my mind started going. Mm-hmm. But like you said, he might have been just trying to fill his quota. Man, these cops, and then also he might have just like, targeted you because that's what he was told to do. Like, had he seen like an Asian person coming through the train selling batteries and bootleg CDs, he probably wouldn't have said nothing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I wasn't there.
Right.
And I know I mentioned earlier the way I feel about police, and what was this cop's race?
White.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, he was white.
And like I think you handled it well. He probably was waiting for you to like start bugging out so he could give you a disorderly conduct.
That's what I was thinking.
And even push your shit further.
Yeah.
But like you said, you acknowledged that you knew he wasn't supposed to walk in your car, so that was like admission of guilt in any circumstance. Mm-hmm. So man, yeah, that whole thing, I mean, it's crazy, man. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm glad that was in the past and that you handled it the way you did. But man, like, I hate that whole, and that's the thing, like the systematic protocol. These cops have to hit certain numbers, and it really makes them abuse their power and like take things out of proportion. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times there's no need for that. But like you said, they got to get their numbers. They got to show that they're being vigilant.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it.
I have a question for you, man. Have you gotten a chance, bro, to go see, to head to the theaters to go see Queen and Slim yet?
I haven't seen Queen and Slim yet.
Okay, so we're not going to go into that part of the conversation. When you do it, brother, I would love to talk to you about it one day. Cool.
Yeah, I think from the previews I know what it's about though. But like let's not get into it yet.
Yeah. We'll save that for another day, another episode. Cool. But I had another point as a backup, just in case you weren't able to go there with me. So with that being said, man, you brought up that pretty good point, which made me pretty much relay my story onto you. And, obviously, coming from this article and, reading, Lieutenant, Edwin Raymond's story and him, filing a lawsuit against the NYPD in regards to this discriminatory practice, I wanted to connect it back to our jobs as educators, of youth, young men of color. Again, I don't think I've heard another young man such as yourself, who's also an artist, who also comes, from, an impoverished, neighborhood and low-income community, talk about bringing your whole self into the mainstream society the way you do, in the sense that, you can be yourself, you can be from the hood, you can be of the hood, but at the same time, that you got to switch it up at certain moments, and that in itself is still a component, an aspect of who you are as a person, in order to survive, in order to make it in America, and in order to, be present. So how do you go about, or how do we go about as educators and just anybody, mentors, how do we go about instilling that into our youth, into our young boys? Because, man, like, I know you didn't see Queen and Slim, but like you said, there's many instances where it can go the exact opposite. Like, even now we have kids in schools, who don't want to deal, with administration because of, I don't want to say biased practices, but because of the disciplinary policies that are instilled and that are in place. And because of that, young black men, they want to revolt, they're very belligerent, and, they definitely start acting, a bit unruly, or in our terms, just bugging out, when they shouldn't. So what do you think about that? Is that something that you worry about, or is that something that you even think about as an educator and you practice in terms of mentoring and talking to you to instill a sense of calmness and a sense of understanding of how to navigate and to interact in that situation, whether it be a cop or any person of authority?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially when I worked in high school, I had a heightened level of like fear about the world that I was sending these kids out into, because a lot of them, really, read below grade level. Their writing skills aren't that well, and you can just kind of see that without like serious intervention and support, like you can already tell, like, not to say because everybody has talents that we don't know about and who knows what's going to come of them, but you kind of see certain behaviors in kids that make you worry, like, man, like, I'm trying to show you I care for you, like, in a nice way, but you don't accept that. Like, you only respect like force and violence, in terms of discipline. And I think that's something that's another thing that like we were kind of brought up with that makes it hard, especially for black people and black men to kind of like let go of that need for violence and aggression to control us, where we should be like just motivated by wanting to like get better in every way. But I think the connection to the system of being like something that was instilled by white oppressors, turns people off from it, from like being educated, from getting good jobs. And it's like there's like a certain level of admiration for going against the system, and I can understand that, and like I get it. But yes, I do try to like talk to my kids in a way where it's like, look, man, I'm not trying to tell you not to be yourself. The last thing I would want to do is strip you of your personality and make you feel like you need to act a certain way to please anybody. But for your own safety, you might just need to be more aware and conscious of like how you might be perceived, or how just the way society treats us, because you're in these spaces where you are protected so much, especially in schools, despite all of the disciplinary practices and the inherent racist policies, such as if you miss this many days, you get left back, or like certain things like that. But I definitely try to like just talk to the kids, especially like the boys, about like, yo, cause like who knows how many of them have the right men in their life talking any kind of sense to them outside of school.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, you bring up a great point for sure. Again, you're an artist, and you bring multiple pieces of yourself into the classroom. You're a very talented, multifaceted guy. I'm curious. Absolutely, bro. Real recognize real. I'm curious. In regards to your practices and your pedagogy as an educator, do you? The reason why I'm asking this is because we actually had a rapper, we had a musician on the show a while back, and even though he is not a teacher such as yourself or an educator, he still brings programs into schools as after-school programs, such as like I know he does a producing music program called Business Behind Music to aid kids and help them learn how to not only write but also mix, master, record, and produce, and so he brings like a whole entire music component to it. I'm interested. Do you do anything similar to that as an educator? And if so, why is hip hop important? And should it be, in terms of your perspective, should it be incorporated within education in the curriculum of impoverished, low-income communities where kids most identify with hip hop?
So no, I don't run any like after school programs, especially not now. Like as I just started at this new school, I'm just trying to get like my feet under me and like just really focus on doing a good job teaching and just building those relationships with the kids as my job requires.
Yeah.
But in terms of bringing like music into the classroom, like I rap for my kids all the time. Like we have little breaks in class, or even when I introduce myself, or sometimes like in a lesson, I'll kick off the lesson with like a little rap. And because but you gotta kind of, with the age group I work with, it gets so out of control. Like they love it, and you love the excitement and the way they receive it. But sometimes it gets a little crazy that you're just like, oh man, like, and then you lose time. But then like that's where the system starts to come in, because it's like the pressure to now make sure you're teaching all of this material kind of does reduce the amount of joy that you can even have in the classroom, especially like when you're working with a certain age group of kids. But I do think that when you're working with, and I don't want to just say like impoverished communities, man, because there's a lot of like white communities that's mad poor, worse off than us, you know what I mean? But working with urban black kids, yeah, I do think it's important that you have curricular resources that connect to their culture, such as hip-hop and stuff like that. But I don't think but then you know what, there is a certain there is some credit, I guess, to using the term impoverished because of where hip-hop started from. But now the genre is like there's so many different avenues of hip-hop that I think, depending on the community you're actually serving, you do have to like kind of be very wary of the music that you're allowing the kids to like buy into. For example, like all of the gangbang and stuff and the drill stuff is real popping, and a lot of the times the kids don't even like know what it's about, but they're coming up of age in a time where it's becoming more and more popular again. But at the same time, if that's we came up listening to hip-hop at a time when it was crazy itself, and then it changed, and it goes through its phases. But I don't ever think that, especially as people of one fabric, that we should try to wear different cloth to bring up our youth. Like, we definitely need to teach them new skills and try to make them go further. But as me being a supporter of hip-hop, I definitely don't think we should ever try to take it away. But just frankly, the use of it in schools, it could go a lot of different ways. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, hell yeah, rapping class all day. But you definitely, like, just think about, I know a teacher said this to you before at some point, like, you can remember them rap lyrics, but you can't remember this or can't remember that.
Yeah.
And like that rhyme, that rhythm, all of that, plays a part in memory and learning. So if you took some of like the aspects of music specifically, and a repetitive genre like hip hop where it's just a lot of loops and loops and loops, I do think there's a lot of benefits in that in the learning process. Yeah.
No, that's really good. That's really, really good. And I appreciate you, man, correcting me. I think sometimes what happens is you can kind of lose, you can kind of have a limited scope, or you can kind of be one-sided or see something a certain way when you're trying to fit in context. So I appreciate you correcting me. I don't, Rise community out there, I don't want anyone, and y'all know I'm an educator, so I don't expect the most from me, but I don't want you guys to think that I'm excluding any white impoverished communities. I know that they exist, and I know that they're out there. But again, Dre and myself, we're two young black men, and we cater to children of color in urban communities. So I kind of wanted to highlight that. But I'm not going to lie, I do admit in hindsight that can get lost. So Dre, I appreciate you for that too, making sure that's noted out there. I think it also, what it does is not only it reinforces your social awareness and your self-awareness, but it also reinforces mine as well, to make sure that in itself is known, and
I also wanted to just highlight that, you know what I mean, just because we are black people living in the communities we do, and there is a lot of the times the reason for it seeming so impoverished is because of the people who actually own it and are in control not upkeeping it properly, and then us just not having the power within it to do much. But there's a lot, man. There's a lot of promise and good business and great ideas. Like poverty, I know, refers mostly to like economic, having a lack of economic resources and all that. But poverty just means having a lack thereof, period. And what we don't lack is hustle. You know what I mean? What we don't lack is creativity. You know what I mean? What we don't lack is like family pride and all of that stuff. And I just wanted to make that point that like, we're black and we're living together in these communities, and most of us don't have the same upward mobility as our white counterparts.
Right.
But I don't want to just describe the general setting of black communities as impoverished.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. Man, I really like where we're going here. So again, we're still talking racial discrimination and bias within society. Before we head into our third and final segment of the day, I definitely want to stay on this for a little bit. So follow me right here, Dre. So I'm going to make a comparison between two separate black men, and then we're going to tie it back into this conversation about discrimination and bias. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's a New York Times piece that I teach in my classes, whether it's at the middle school level, high school level, or even right now as an adjunct professor at the college level. There are two pieces in particular that I teach, and for the most part, I think it resonates across all three sectors. So there's this writer, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name is Brent Staples. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I have not.
So Brent Staples is a journalist, right? He writes for the New York Times. He won a Pulitzer Prize, I think, back in 1993 or somewhere in the early 90s, I think. Just for great journalism. And so Brent Staples, I think back in the 70s, was a PhD grad student at the University of Chicago, right? He was 22 years old at the University of Chicago, and he would often walk, at night. He would often hit the streets and walk at night to kind of just like clear his mind, because, him being a grad student at the U of Chicago, one could only imagine how stressful that was, right? But what happened to him one day was that, as he was walking late at night, a young lady, a young white woman that was walking in front of him, she kind of turned her back, a little bit, and then now she sees this tall black man. I think he stood about 6'2", and he had a beard and long black hair, so I think he had locks. And so when she saw him, she kind of, braced herself and then ran across the street. And he was looking at her kind of confounded and kind of lost as to why she did that. But then he realized, he started to realize, even though I know I'm a harmless person and, I don't carry weapons or I'm not violent in any way, I have to understand the optics. She's a young white woman. It's around 11 o'clock at night, and I'm walking the streets, and here she is all alone. So of course she gets scared. But then he says that first encounter in itself, was not the only one, right? So it says here, let me see. In that first year, during my time at the University of Chicago, I would cross in front of cars at traffic lights and hear thunk, 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 thunks of the drivers locking up their car doors, whether black, white, male, or females in general. On less traveled streets after dark, I grew accustomed to, but never comfortable with people who crossed to the other side of the street rather than past me. Then there was the standard unpleasantries with police, doormen, bouncers, cab drivers, and others whose business is to screen out troublesome individuals before there is any nastiness, right? And then when he moved to New York, he talked about running into a building one time, right? He was running into a building because he was a journalist, and he was literally meeting a deadline for the press. And as he ran into the building, the security guards, ran after him because he didn't even sign in or say he was a guest. They ran after him, and I think they got two guard dogs to haul him down and to pin him and to identify him and to see who he was. I don't know. There's a lot in here to peel apart and to kind of unpack. What are your thoughts about that? And when we're talking discrimination, racial discrimination and bias, what are your thoughts about that? Whether it be, you know, him being a grad student that night and walking the streets and, you know, this white woman being terrified, or him just maneuvering throughout the city of Chicago or New York and people locking their car doors when they look at him for his size, his height, you know, his dreaded locks, you know, him being 6'2", you know, not knowing anything about this man in terms of where he comes from, how educated he is, how smart he is. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it shows, for one, like, the ignorance of other people and the fear, but at the same time, right now, some of these people might have gone through traumatic experiences and might just be traumatized in general, and, you know, who knows how they act. So I try not to take anything too personal when I see somebody. For example, like, because I don't think I put fear in anybody's heart when I'm walking towards them, walking behind them, or they, you know, anything like that. But then that's just, of course, me knowing myself and knowing that I ain't out looking to harm nobody. I'm not trying to, you know, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And but you know, but it's like at the same time, like, I remember, like, you know, I used to, like, see people and think, like, yo, damn, like, why the hell they look so angry, or, you know, what the hell is their problem? But who the hell knows? Like, that is a good question. Why the hell are they? What the hell is bothering them? You know, and I think people just, like, assume, you know, are just quick to assume and forget, you know, so much how much they come off to other people. I think, you know, it's unfortunate for that brother that he had that experience so many times, but I can relate to that. Like, I feel like just recently, like, it was late at night, I was crossing it. It was like a big street. You know how some streets, it'd be like a whole big ass street where it's like traffic could go 6 different ways.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You might cross it kind of funny, like,
just to get
your own benefit,
just to get across. Yeah.
Right. And then crossing the street that way, you might walk past somebody's car around it, you know, whatever. And I definitely feel like I was jaywalking the other day in a similar fashion, and I heard somebody, like, you know, lock their car door. I was like, really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, really? You know what I mean? But, you know, whatever. You know, fine. Maybe at that point they just realized their door wasn't locked yet, and me crossing the street just reminded them. They didn't have to necessarily be scared of me, right? Like, for my own peace of mind, I try not to assume that somebody did something strictly because I made them feel that way. You know what I mean? Because then, like, just me being the type of person I am, I would be, like, too negatively affected, as this brother was, Professor Staples, Brent Staples.
Yes.
So, and I probably would want to write a book about it, but just like, for me personally, those kind of experiences are just kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say more empowering, because it's like, you know, fuck it. At least you notice me. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I don't want to be noticed for that. It just sucks. But like, I definitely understand. And for one, like, now I go to work sometime, I'll be, you know, suited and booted. But a lot of times, like, I'm dressed like semi-casual, and once I leave work and I put on my jacket, tie my do-rag, put my headphones and my hoodie on, there's no telling where I'm coming from, like, you know, like, and if I stop, or like, let's say I'm reading a book or something, or I just end up sparking a conversation and it comes out that I'm a teacher, everybody I talk to's first reaction is surprise. Or they say something like, you don't look like no teacher, or I would have never thought you was a teacher.
Right.
You know, and I love that shit, bro.
Yeah.
I love that.
For sure.
I love that, you know.
For sure.
You know, some people just get off on different things, and I kind of get off on, like, being misunderstood.
Right.
Honestly, bro, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. I love that you mentioned that. I think this is a perfect time to follow this up with this. So, this is pretty much the end of the article where we're at right now with Brent Staples. But he says, and I kind of want to tie this back into a personal experience of mine that I just had yesterday with my girl. He says, I began to take precautions to make myself less threatening. I move about with care, particularly late in the evening. I give a wide berth to nervous people on subway platforms during the wee hours of the night. Particularly when I have exchanged business clothes for jeans. If I happen to be entering a building behind some people who appear skittish, I may walk by, letting them clear the lobby before I return so as not to seem to be following them. I have been calm and congenial on those rare occasions where I've been pulled over by the police. And then he says later on, and on late evening constitutionals along streets less traveled, I employ what has proved to be an excellent tension-reducing measure. I whistle melodies from Beethoven and Vivaldi and the more popular classical composers. Even steely New Yorkers hunching toward nighttime destinations seem to ease and relax, and occasionally they even join in the tune when they hear me whistling this. Virtually everybody seems to sense that a mugger wouldn't be warbling bright, sunny selections from Vivaldi's Four Seasons. It is my equivalent of the cowbell that hikers wear when they are in bear country. Now, I think it's interesting that he says that, right? That he brings up, classical composers such as Beethoven and Vivaldi to prove a point, or to kind of conform and integrate himself within society to make those that don't look like him feel more comfortable. And so yesterday, my girl and I, we went to Chipotle, and we was just grabbing a bite to eat. And
I'm definitely going to get Chipotle after this.
Yeah, Chipotle's a spot, yo. Shout out to Chipotle. We've actually, Mark and I have actually mentioned Chipotle a couple of times on this podcast. But yeah, so, my girl and I, we got Chipotle last night, just before heading to the gym to go work out. And bro, we're leaving Chipotle, and this young white fellow, this white man opens, and I hate to use terms like that to describe someone, right? Like a black man or a white man, but that's what he was. He opens the door because he's trying to come in, but he sees us coming out, and I'm genuinely just a really nice dude, bro. So he opens the door, and I'm like, oh no, I was like, you were at the door way before we were coming out. I was like, come on in, and then he was like, no, and literally we stood there, bro, for like 10 seconds, and then when he saw I wasn't budging, he eventually came in, and then as he was coming in, I smiled, and then my girl smiled behind me, and then he was like, oh, thank you so much. I was like, no, I was like, thank you. I was like, have a great night and a great weekend. He was like, you too, you guys too. And then my girl was like, yes, you too. And he walked out. And then as we were heading towards the car, I was looking at my girl. I was like, I don't know why I do that, but I feel as if every time, I'm in a really nice area with respectable people, I feel as if I have to go to the max and the next level and conform, and if I was in a black, neighborhood, I wouldn't do that. But if I see white folk in a very nice place, I feel as if I have to not be subservient to them, but kind of show them hey, I'm not, ghetto, I'm not threatening, come on in. I'm trying to show you that, we're all not bad, or whatever the case may be. And then she was like, I don't know. I don't even think he was thinking that. Now it's so funny that she said that, because I thought the opposite. I was like, I don't know. I feel as if the kind of look he gave me was a look of relief. Like, all right, he's actually a cool guy. All right, this is a cool Negro right here. But But maybe it was just in my mind, right? But I always feel that way, Dre. She doesn't really think about it that much, She because she, a story for another day. But my girl pretty much went to private school all her life, so she knows how to navigate and maneuver around those spaces like that. Me, no, I grew up, and born and raised in black community all my life. So my only time really, communicating or really living within the dwelling of them or around them is college. That's really the only thing, or just working right now. So for me it was just kind of crazy. But I think it's interesting that sometimes black folks, or maybe this is my opinion, if you disagree, please feel free to disagree. I feel that sometimes we feel the need to conform, to adapt, or adjust our mannerisms, or to make them feel comfortable in order to live within their presence, or to just make them feel at ease. What do you think? What's your thoughts about that? Whether about my piece or about Professor Staples' piece as well, in terms of whistling Vivaldi and whatnot.
Yeah, I want to speak to both of those. To your latter question about just black people feeling like the need to conform in white spaces. Absolutely. And I think we've all been guilty of it. And by we, I mean any black person that has ever kind of been successful in any kind of white space. For the most part, there's always, and not always, but there is usually some level of, I gotta go to work and and be around these people and act the way, I gotta act, and even laugh at their corny ass jokes, try their nasty ass food they make. Like, bro, I mean, like, all of that is like a part of it. Even being interested in the like problems they talk about, like, the term white people problems, like white people come to work talking about they dog sitter being late, and I'm like, yo, like, you understand what I'm saying? And then like we sit there and like listen to these stories like our mother isn't being evicted at the same time, but we don't talk about none of that.
Right.
I mean, being evicted from the crib that we grew up in and she lived in all her life, and going to court because these Jews want to raise the rent 50,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, I really hope I'm not giving your podcast the wrong kind of political edge right now.
No, not at all.
Speaking my truth.
Not at all, man. Not at all. The wise community knows that there's going to be a myriad of different, opinions and ideas from all sectors and from all guests. So they welcome this. If anything, when they hit you up or they thank you for coming on, you're gonna get a lot of people clapping back at you or just getting at you. So it's all good, man. It's all good.
Cool.
It's all healthy conversation for sure.
Yeah, and so like I definitely know that happens. For me personally, I try to be nice all the time. Doesn't really matter who it is, but I do notice that like if like in the occasion of holding the door for a white person, their smile will seem peculiar, like oh thanks, I wasn't expecting this, like if I could take a picture of their face, the words it would say is, oh wow, this is a nice ass nigga. He really held the door, ain't pushed past me, let me come in first. And it was like I would do that for anybody, like especially like a woman. But if I was particularly just like in a good mood, not in a rush, and if logistically, like let's say I pulled the door open and somebody was about to walk in, it only makes sense that I hold the door, let them come in before I walk around and go out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It's just like the right of way and like rules of the road that I kind of operate by.
Mm-hmm.
Less about conformity, just kind of more about like what makes sense, and then generally just general kindness. Like there's no reason not to say thank you or not to hold the door for somebody if they're about to walk in and you already holding the shit open.
Mm-hmm.
And then about the whistling Vivaldi. So it's crazy. In my prior teaching experience when I was at a high school, I co-taught 12th grade English, and my co-teacher, he's also a very talented man. I hope he don't mind me saying his name, but Mr. Peter Lopez. Mm-hmm. He's also like a painter. He actually painted this dope portrait for me that I got hanging up in my living room. But he had mentioned during one of our units, I think we was teaching the story. What's the book with Bigger Thomas?
Oh, Native Son. That's my joint, man. A classic. Right? My favorite book.
Right. So I think we was teaching like right before we started teaching the book. You know how before you start teaching a new book in school, you read like some related material, kind of just to give the kids context. So we was doing that, and we had read this text about this whistling Vivaldi thing, and maybe I did hear of Brent Staples before, but until you mentioned whistling Vivaldi, I didn't recall. Mm-hmm. But I definitely remember like having intense dialogue with, I don't remember if it was just in class or with the whole staff. We talked about it, but how there's like this survival tactic for black people to like kind of show that they understand white culture in order to not be perceived as a threat. You know what I'm saying? So like I've definitely heard that talk and like I've thought about that a lot. And then even like in myself, like the way I carry myself, like a lot of times I think like, am I not being black enough? Like am I trying too hard, like to just to not seem threatening? But I kind of feel like that, because if I'm walking down the street and I'm listening to like some gangster music, I'm gonna walk down and probably, like just it really just depends on how I feel at the time, in terms of how I might come off to certain people. But just like knowing my intentions, I don't ever really worry about, because I can easily take my headphones out and explain to somebody, hey look, I'm sorry if my music is too loud and you can hear it, it's offensive, but I am in no way trying to bother you. You know what I mean? To put my headphones right back on and go about the way without even cursing at them, without even necessarily having to be aggressive.
Right.
Tell somebody, look, I'm not. You don't even. I barely even see you. For one, I could look over you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Right.
Get out of here.
Right.
But yeah, like it just sucks that society has kind of put that certain pressure on such a huge population of people, especially being of that population. It kind of hits home, and it just it's hard. And bringing it back to education, like when you try to like kind of teach kids how to be themselves, but also protect themselves by not inviting negativity, it becomes very complicated. And it's like, what am I actually telling this person to do?
Yeah.
You know, and ultimately, I'm a person who doesn't like to tell people what to do, but share my experiences and hope that something I said resonates with them and they can use it to their benefit.
Excellent, man. Wow. Hang in there with me, Dre. We're almost done. Well, you know, we're pushing through.
Nah, we good. I'm here, bro.
Okay, cool. I'm happy to hear that. I'm really happy to hear that. So I wanted to connect this right back into hip hop, man. And there's this artist, man, I love. When I say love, bro, like I love this dude. And oftentimes I you know, they're in no way related, but I often like to teach both of their pieces together because of the fact that you know, both of their pieces talk about bias and racial discrimination. So I'm talking about Vince Staples, man. Do you listen to Vince at all?
Yo, I don't listen to Vince Staples like that, bro.
Bro, you got to get on Vince, man. If there's anywhere you need to start, I would start with his first album, Summertime '06. That's the album I would recommend you listening to. And I know you got a flight real soon, so I know, you know, that's definitely the one you're gonna want to be bumping for sure.
Okay,
so
yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I definitely gotta like compile some joints to listen to.
Yeah, man. Yo, honestly. All right, I don't want to be rambling here, but like Vince Staples' Summertime '06 is one of my top. It's in my top five hip hop album of the decade. Like, swear to you, like real talk, dead ass. But that's another talk for another day, actually. Yeah, so Vince Staples has a song on his album called "Like It Is," on that first album, and in "Like It Is," he's pretty much talking about, you know, racial bias, racial discrimination, and black masculinity in America itself. And throughout the song, you know, he has like these couple of interlude parts where he speaks towards, you know, where he came from in regards to his neighborhood, and how, you know, and how white, how do I say this, white power structures perceives young black men like him within his neighborhood. And I wanted to read these two interludes from the song "Like It Is" to kind of compare it and as well as parallel it to the Brent Staples article. Sounds good with you?
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm going to read them together, and once I'm done reading them, I just want you to give me your response onto what you think Vince was trying to say, or give your perspective or your take on it.
Alright.
So he says in the first interlude, "When I was in 7th grade, my grandfather told me don't get caught loving the streets because they never gonna love you back. But I feel like it's all we got, so it's all we really do love. At the end of the day, I feel like the problem is that the people that control it don't really come from here, so they can't do nothing but look down on us. We look at them, we see somebody that could help, but they look at us and all they see is a nigga. It don't really matter anyway. We all gonna die one day, man. One day." And in the second interlude, he says, "When most people look at a person who does what I do, they look at us with these preconceived notions as if it's a set way for us all to be. But we all people at the end of the day, so I wonder why we don't treat each other like it. You're looking at a person telling them that their story don't matter, but they're really no better than me walking down the streets trying to shoot at somebody. Because all we got is these dreams, man, and y'all ain't never had to not have nothing. And that's the last thing you want for anybody, is to not really have nothing at all." What do you think about that? Either of those interludes. If you could speak to a kid who's saying this in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, what would you say to them? Or what would you say to me or someone outside of the community and say to that person as a response for that kid?
I got a question first before I answer that, like just to follow up, because that was very deep.
Shoot.
And those two interludes were on the same album, you said, right?
They're on the same album and same song called "Like It Is" on Summertime '06. Yep.
So he says one in the beginning of the song and another one at the end?
Yeah, so he has 2 verses and then an interlude and then another 2 verses and then that second interlude that I just gave to you.
Okay, and you said them in order, so the first one was first and the second one he then said?
Yes, yeah, so the first one is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Damn, like, I think I got goosebumps listening to that. For real, I don't know, I'm also kind of cold right now. But I think the goosebumps I got was from listening to what you just was reading. So talking to a kid, what will my response be to a kid who says something like that?
Yeah, we could do this 2 ways. You could tell me what your response would be talking to a kid who said something like that, and then you could also give a response to someone outside of the black community who is trying to comprehend what this kid is saying.
Yeah, okay, let's go with the second part.
Okay, cool.
I think that's like what's most important because, well, no, it's damn, bro. Why you say this for last?
Gotta put you on the spot, bro.
Alright. It's 100% accurate what he's saying. You know, it's like as people, nobody, like, right, even the most greedy drug lord who's willing to kill, right, for his empire, he also like takes care of the people in his community that they care about. Like, so I don't think nobody wants to be in a position where they have to force somebody not to have nothing just for them to have nothing, or to, you know, where they have to. And this is going more to the second, you know, to what he said to wrap up that second interlude, where at the end of the day we people, and the worst thing to have to think about is somebody having nothing at all, you know, but the people controlling like the communities that we're living in and just controlling society, right? The capitalism as a system inevitably produces poverty, and although poverty means not having enough, sometimes you don't have nothing, like for real, like, and that's just the whole systematic and like that's a problem around the world, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what's so important about hip hop, is that it really talks about like the real issues, like not just how people like feel, you know, dealing with their reality, but like the problems that's causing it. And ironically also, because in hip hop, you know, it's all about like, you know, getting that money, that hustle, that capitalism, my gang against your gang, but then we all talking about protecting each other, but you know what I mean, it's a bit of hypocrisy in it.
Right.
And I was actually reading this article yesterday because Jay-Z just turned 50.
Yeah.
They was talking about 50 complicated things about Jay-Z's legacy, and it was about, you know, how just how he came to be and what he represented, and all of the different things that worked in his favor in terms of him becoming what he is. It really does speak perfectly to how hip hop and the communities that created it, you know, really like kind of walk this fine line between destruction and what's the word I'm looking for? Destruction and augmentation. You know what I mean? Because the same ways that we're trying to better ourselves, you know, you got to think about your wake. Like, you know, like when you walk in water, you make the waves, and then those waves go. You got to think about the waves you creating as you moving about,
and the ripple effect that they cause.
Yeah, the ripple, the butterfly effect is called, or whatever. I just, yo, bro, all this time, like I've been hearing people talk about the butterfly effect. I had never really knew what it meant until like maybe 2 weeks ago. One of my coworkers was explaining it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I swear to God, bro. Like, I didn't, you know, but I had an understanding, like a concept. Yeah, everything, like, you know, I know that everything has an effect on something, but I never really understood the butterfly effect, and I digress.
Yeah.
But, you know, it and then to the first thing he said about, like, yeah, like, man, we live in it. At the end of the day, all you got is where you come from, because anywhere you're trying to go, you may not be accepted, and fine, you might not need to be accepted, but like your man Mark was saying before he had to go, there's so many ways of pushing people out of communities, especially when they come from, even if that's the community you're from, right? So with gentrification, fine, we're here, but now other people want to take over for like the cultural aspects of, because of the strategic whatever, the market and all of that.
Yeah.
And then so like the powers that be will find ways to push you out. But then, like, you know, in the same way, when you're trying to climb that ladder and go forward and move up, and fine, you've established yourself, and the people can't really get rid of you, you know what I mean? But they find a way, or just like your man said, that increased harassment, that constant oversight, to the point where you like, man, forget this, be like, I'll go back to where I'm from, where I know how to navigate, where I know the waters, you know what I mean, where you know what I mean, where normal to me is a life that most of y'all could never even survive. And I'm okay with that, you know, and we don't want to have to reduce our standards or settle for not being as great as we possibly could be, or want to be, or enjoying the finer things in life. But so much comes with that, and a big part of it is then becoming parallel with the people who you feel like are creating the problems for you. And I think a lot of times, as black people or successful black people and black men, there's a lot of pressure to not become like white men. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I kind of started to get off topic, but
no, sounds good.
Yeah, I just kind of still think that, like, what Vince Staples was saying in those interludes is that, look, man, like, we want to do all of this and get out the hood and do all of that, but it's just like, why? Like, why do we want to leave our people so bad? Why can't we just fix it all up? And you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we're all people. The only reason we have to resort to certain actions is because of the situations we're put in. But if we had the power, we could fix it up, and if those who were controlling it really understood us better, I think we could make each other even more powerful. But you know, it's that thing exists.
Yeah, no, absolutely, bro. No, for sure. No, man, that's really good. I really like that. Wow, man, I feel as if the wise community out there got a lot of gems today, just from you, myself, and you know, the little bit of Mark that we had, unfortunately, because he had, you know, he couldn't stay because he had to go. I feel as if they really got a lot out of it. Before we go, man, and you know, we kind of close the show out. Mark and I, we usually do this segment called Word to the Wise. So I'm going to explain it to you real briefly. So with Word to the Wise, what we do is we recap, you know, the show and leave the listeners with a word, just one word, and then we expound upon that word and we explain why that word is important, you know, in terms of being geared towards our conversation or our topics for the day. So that way the listeners can get that wise word and really try to implement, you know, that word as a terminology and a practice within their own life, right? So I'm going, you know, since you're our guest for the day, I'm going to let you go first. So I'm going to start off, and again, our segment is called Word to the Wise. So for today's episode, my word to the wise, Dre, is awareness. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I brought it up earlier in the show in regards to you know, being in Chipotle and just, you know, having awareness, and even with the situations with the police and me having self-awareness. So wise community out there, wise guys, wise gals, I say awareness is my important word. And you know, if you have gotten the chance to catch that movie Queen and Slim, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even if you haven't gotten a chance to see that movie or any movies that speak towards police brutality, but we've all seen, you know, over the past couple of years what has happened to the likes of, you know, Eric Garner and you know, Jordan Davis, you know, and I can go on and on and on, Mike Brown, etc., etc. You need to be aware, and I think this is something that makes me really worried about our babies, about our kids in this country, is that oftentimes, you know, they're very apprehensive and rebellious towards the institutions, and as well as the powers of the institutions, the powers that be, whether that be police and law enforcement of all types and all kinds. And you can see that rebellious nature in how they deal with their teachers. And now I'm not saying that all teachers are right in regards to how they deal with their students, because a lot of that condemnation that plays in regards to bias in the mind of a kid stems from, you know, this sense of oppression and systematic control that we even see from our teachers and our authoritative figures. And again, it's not everyone, but we all need to play our part in terms of bettering ourselves. But I think that I even said this to one of my students a few weeks back at the high school I work at. I was like, yo, like, at the end of the day, you're a young black man in this country. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be every white person or every other person that doesn't look like you, but a majority of them already have a bias, or a good amount of them already have a bias and a one-sided perspective or viewpoint in a lens in regards to how they see us. So you need to learn how to administer self-control upon yourself. You need to be able to live within a streamline of double consciousness and know, okay, this is what I think, now this is what this white person or what this other person is thinking. Now how can I go so I don't go about falling into the trap of portraying and painting that, you know, that elusive narrative of the black man as beast, as demon, or as someone that is highly truculent and very, very dangerous to the community. So you need to learn how to speak, how to take care of yourself, and how to administer a form of peace and understanding within your awareness, so that way you can survive. All right. So for me, ladies and gents, that's my word to the wise today. Because without awareness, and when I say awareness, I don't just mean awareness from your lens. Again, think about W.E.B. Du Bois's double consciousness. If you've never heard of that terminology before, you've never heard of that framework, please be sure to look it up. W.E.B. Du Bois was a great scholar in the early 1900s, and he wrote the book The Souls of Black Folks. And a lot of what I'm saying is attributed to his framework and his form of thinking. And man, a bright man. But again, that's a topic for another day, for another podcast. But awareness, guys, I think that's the word that I would like to leave you all with today. Dre, what's your word to the wise?
My word to the wise is education. It's a simple word, but awareness is a part of that. Consciousness is a part of that. That's another word you mentioned. And I think one thing that I label myself as is a lifelong learner. Does that mean that I'm going to be in school forever? No, but I try to look at every instance in life, every experience as a moment to learn from. And I think, you know, it comes with being aware of your surroundings, of being aware of what the cause and effect of every experience you go through is, and then just learning from that and trying as hard as possible, like, not to repeat mistakes that you make, trying to, you know, improve yourself when you do wrong, right? Even when you do something intentional, thinking is right, and it turns out that that was the wrong thing to do, accepting that you did wrong and holding yourself accountable and really learning how to do that, because this really is like the school of self, where you have to, you know, know yourself and know who you are as any person. And since the people we're talking about, like, are black people, you know, we definitely have to be as educated as possible about all things, you know, just to give ourselves the best opportunity and to really be able to do what we want and have what we want and protect ourselves. And so education is not just about going to school and getting all of these degrees, but knowing, right, having that cultural awareness, that social awareness, that political awareness. As you said, that word awareness is very important, and I just couldn't steal your word, but I would definitely say, you know, education. And I was thinking maybe consciousness, so thank you for everything you said, for giving me time to think about my word. I was listening to what you were saying, you know, for sure, but had you only spoke for like 3 seconds and then told me to say my word, the fans would have been listening for a minute, like, come on, Dre, you got all this to say, now you got us waiting, so thank you for that. But yeah, my word would be education, you know, and just, even whatever it is you want to do, learn as much about that, you know, like, and just learn the political environment of it, you know, learn the way people, you know, learn the rule of thumb, learn the tricks of the trade, learn the secrets of it, like learn everything, because you don't want to. Some people like surprises, but in real life, surprises usually make things harder.
That's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah,
And just for your info, just so that you know, we always, when I say always, Mark and I always make sure for the word to the why segment that we allow our guests to go last. So especially if they've never been on the show, so that way they can have a good ample amount of time to formulate their thoughts and their opinions together in a concise manner. So oftentimes when we go first, whether it's Mark or myself, we all, like whoever goes first is usually the person usually scrambling trying to get their thoughts together. But I think that this was such a good natured and well-flowing educational conversation and insightful that, you know, it was easy for me to pluck out my words. So but Dre, on the behalf of Mark and myself, we're so happy that you were able to spend some time with us today and actually set some time out in your life to speak to us, man. We really appreciate it, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all for having me, and thanks for even, valuing, my opinion to the point that you wanted me to come speak on the show. Like, when you hit me up the other day about being on the podcast, man, I was honored. I'm like, yeah, bro, like, I know you remember what I said. I'm like, I don't know if I got the best ideas, but yeah, I'll say how I feel, hopefully it's good, so yeah, I appreciate you even more, bro, for sure.
Nah, man,
and good luck with the podcast.
No.
I know you're trying to, do big things, man. Just this is dope, bro.
No, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, the whole intended purpose of our podcast, Mark and I, is to enlighten and to inform. The podcast itself is a self-improvement podcast, and our mantra is millennials who are currently facing, challenges and roadblocks, and coming up with solutions in terms of how they could overcome them to break down generational curses, to build generational wealth, and to just start, being the building blocks and the foundational blocks to rise and bring their families and themselves out of oppression. So obviously, I thought of you because, you have a great mind. It was awesome picking your brain back in college. Shout out to, again, I don't know, they're in the public eye, so I'm sure they wouldn't be opposed to me shouting out their names. Shout out to our former professors, Professor Martha Nadell and Professor Ben Lerner. It was awesome just getting a chance to be in those classes, also with you, and getting a chance to pick your brain and getting your perspective on a lot of the things that we talked about in class. And I always admired your mind, man, and to know that you were a rapper and you were from the hood and you carried yourself as you have, and now you're an educator. I'm like, man, like you're a perfect person for our guests to hear from, man. I think people need to hear people well-rounded such as yourself, and people who can, they could look to and they could identify, man. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. And likewise, Kev, man. Like you one of the smartest dudes I know, and bro, like I said, man, it was an honor for you to even ask me to be on the podcast. Like, I'm gonna definitely start, checking it out and getting up on these conversations, and I'm gonna listen back to some of the ones from the past, and like pick up on something, for sure, bro. Like you said before we went live, we gotta link up. Now, I mean, it's been too long since we actually got together, so like we gotta link up or something.
Let's do it. When I know I'm gonna be back in New York for a while, because I'm always in New York for like holidays, whether it be Easter, Christmas, summertime. I'll even spend 2-3 weeks out there. Let's do it. I'll definitely hit you up in advance to plan something for sure. Yeah, bro. So before we go, bro, again, you're not just an educator and a critical thinker. You're also a writer, an artist, a rapper, a poet. Could you please plug in your socials and once again plug in any work that you have that's either out in your catalog or present right now? Please let the people know where they can find you, bro.
Absolutely. Again, man, the artist's name is Hoffa Bills, HOFFABILLZ. That's 2 words. I recently put out 2 videos on YouTube this year.
Okay.
One is called what's the name of it? Doing This. One is called Doing This. Another one is called ICT. If you just search my name on YouTube, it'll come up.
Mm-hmm.
I have a EP out on all music platforms, whatever you use, iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, whatever you use to listen to music. Go download the EP. You can search my name, Hoffa Bills, or you can search Miss Kathy's son. I'm working on another one right now, and in terms of social media, you can find me on Instagram, Hoffa_Bills, HOFFA.BILLZ. You know what I'm saying? Links to all of my music is up there and everything. And you know what I'm saying? Just follow me, baby.
You heard the man. Y'all heard the man. Please be sure to follow this brother. Not only this guy's a great artist, but he's a really, really smart, dope cat that you would just love to sit down, pick his brain, and drink a cup of coffee in Starbucks. And that's my boy Dre right there. Ladies and gents, that is our show for today. Okay, Mark will be back next week. Ladies and gents, also we only have 3 episodes left of the podcast. All right, this is episode 22. Our first season concludes after episode 25. So if you haven't had the chance yet, please be sure to leave reviews of the podcast on all platforms that it's available on, whether that be Apple, all right, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube. I guess you can leave reviews on YouTube, but it's not the best way, I would say. Stitcher Radio, please, because the only way other people are going to come across the podcast and support and push us and, get us out there is if you all, talk about it and share it within, your daily spaces and circles. And shout out to everyone who's blowing up our Instagram right now, who's hitting us up. We're over 1,000 followers right now, strong. And to all of those not only that are following, but who are engaging and actually, contributing to the comment section and saying their thoughts and pitching episode ideas to Mark and I. We listen, we read, we comment back. Remember, this is the wise community, so everything that Mark and I say is not, the end all be all. And even though it might hold weight, what you say holds weight too. So please be sure to contribute, share, and add your thoughts as well. Even if you disagree with us, please be sure to do that. And on another note, before we get out of here, please show my boy Dre, aka Hoffa Bill, some love. When I say that, please flood his pages with comments, questions, DM him, ask him about his music, ask him about his artistry, ask him about what he's doing in education, and ask him about or comment about this episode in general and what you thought about what he said. Because again, we want our guests to feel the love, so that way they feel as if they are not just being spoken to or interviewed, but that they are contributing to our platform, and then the hope is that they'd be willing to come back for another round, all right? Because I would love to get, my boy Dre back here for season 2 or season 3. Okay, so please make sure you spread that love and show him that love and hit him up. Okay, we greatly appreciate it. And I'm gonna put Dre on the spot. Dre, let me know if y'all hitting him up and y'all telling some good things his way. He'll definitely let me know. So make sure y'all go ahead and y'all do that. All right. So again, that's our show for sure. So again, that's our show for today. We'll be back next week with episode 23. All right. I'm not too sure as of right now what that is yet. We have a couple ideas, Mark and I, but we'll let you know when we're back in a swing and full effects next week. So as I said at the beginning of the podcast, ladies and gents, it's your boy Kevin Anglade, and we are joined by our very, very, very special guest.
It's your boy Hoffa Bills, baby, aka Dre Coleman. You know the vibes.
That is the best featured spot ever by one of our guests. I love it. And we are the Wise Guys Podcast. All right. We'll see you all next week. I know Mark's not here, but if he was here, he would say, stay wise.
I'm about to go to Chipotle, you heard?